Today's video is 5 things to know about Kirtan. My name is Jeff Starr, and today I'm joined by Mike Cohen, who is a harmonium expert with over 20 years of experience and a lifelong musician. And Mike is also the founder of the school Kirtan Leader. And he's very qualified to talk about this particular type of music. So, Mike, what is Kirtan?
That is a great question. I'm going to say, first of all, Kirtan is sacred chant, and this is a tradition that comes out of India and their culture, and it's been dated back to 700, 800, 900 AD. But it really blossomed in the 1500s. There was a whole Kirtan explosion, has never happened in the planet that took place in India. And so what Kirtan is sacred chanting of ancient mantras. And that can sound very esoteric. And I'll share with you that 2 aspects of it. One is Kirtan is both simultaneously really easy and an experience. So it's sort of like I could talk about the recipe for a cake, but if you ate a bite, then you would really understand it. And so we're going to talk about Kirtan, but it's better if you taste it, right, and understand from your own experience. And then the other thing is that it is a gift from the Indian culture that we are, it's profound, and it's great that we have access to it these days in the West.
In my sort of novice, sort of pre-research to this, I get the impression that many people are sort of drawn to Kirtan because of maybe some of those spiritual or meditative aspects. What would you say are the benefits to someone who is participating in Kirtan? That seems maybe like a broad question, but why Kirtan?
Yeah, and I think it's the question, it's got to be relevant and useful and valuable as a practice if we're going to do it. So I could answer that like 20 different ways. Now, one way is, you mentioned meditation, and a lot of people practice meditation because it's calming and it's good for our health and it keeps us sane. And, many people, if they're like me, you sit down to meditate and you think maybe, okay, the instruction is to follow my breath, and I follow my breath for, 3 breaths, and then I'm thinking about dinner or, food shopping or the 17 projects I have, or I get real upset. And there's so many things going on inside of my head. And what people, I think, find when they do Kirtan is they're chanting and they're using their breath and their body in a way that, it's like if you think of your head as a shook up snow globe with all that glitter flying around, it's like it slowly gets that glitter to come to the bottom in a way and settle down in a way that many people find difficult with meditation. And it's fun and easy and profound and beautiful. And I would say part of what it does also is it drops us in our body through the kind of singing and breathing aspect of it. And then what we find is that our heart opens and our head becomes soft and receptive. And when we're in our body and our heart's open and our head is soft and receptive, we're generally, I would say, more, we're happier, a mood of gratitude and appreciation arises, but we're more likely to respond to life appropriately rather than react to life. So in that sense, it's quite practical.
For the chanting aspect, a lot of that would be in Sanskrit. Is that correct?
Yeah.
If let's say I'm go to a Kirtan session or someone drags me along, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
How important is it for me to know Sanskrit or know what I'm saying to actually be able to participate? Like, there's somewhat of maybe a language barrier, or no? How would you respond to that?
Yeah, well, this is kind of funny answer, I think, but you're actually better off if you don't know Sanskrit.
Okay.
Because what matters is the experience of chanting, which is breathing and saying these mantras, and they magically produce something within us. Now, there's actually an advantage that it's not English words, because if I say, Jeff, I wrote this song, let me sing it to you. It's like, I really love you, and this is really difficult, and this part was cool, and that part was awful, and and using these words, and we have all these interpretations laden on these words, and it's very easy to think about, what does he mean by that? And now I'm off of my head, right? But if I chant Om, and I say this chant has been utilized for, hundreds, if not thousands of years, and it is considered to be the universal sound and kind of taps you into the energy of the universe. It's like, well, I mean, I guess I could think about that, but let me chant it and let me just see what that experience is. So let me
Yeah.
taste the cake rather than thinking about the recipe.
Sure. Yeah. Do you think because the fact that the chant is continuing on, that helps to allow the participant to not get stuck thinking about something? Because to your point, like if I don't know Sanskrit, I have to keep up with it. So I'm sort of, certainly if I'm learning that chant, I have to be somewhat engaged in that focus. Whereas if it was meditation and silence, my mind can drift. If I'm sort of chasing the chant in a way to keep up with it, I can't, I don't have the energy to get lost. Is that?
Yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that. Well, there's this word mantra, and when
Yeah.
we're chanting mantras, and mantra, the root of that has something to do with mind protection or mind engagement. So it's almost like you're giving your mind enough to keep it occupied while you're breathing and you're experiencing this vibration. Again, it's like hard to talk about the recipe of the cake or, explain,
Yes.
oh, this chocolate was so delicious. It's like,
Yeah.
but there are various ways that people do kirtan, and so it could be you're just chanting at home by yourself, or it could be maybe you're a yoga teacher and you're chanting with your group, or a sound healer. A lot of sound healers are buying harmoniums and
Okay.
adding that to their. And it could be that, like me and many of the students we work with, that you have a band and you're bringing your community together. You're leading them through an experience, and this is where I think it gets really fun. And there are many, like kirtan is like jazz. You can kind of take any style and mash it in there. But just to talk about two different styles, some styles are more like a beautiful lake and it's just sitting there in all its majestic glory. And some styles are more like a river that's building up steam and really going, maybe the music is getting faster and the melodies are getting higher and the density is increasing and it's getting louder and bigger. And you're really working with the energy in sort of a bell curve kind of way. Um,
Sure.
I think participants, because what they're chanting is repetitive and also not necessarily engaging them cognitively, they can kind of drop into this experience where they maybe cease to be the wave and drop into being the ocean. And there's a sense of like relief and release in that.
That's interesting. Is that social aspect? I mean, I know you said that kirtan can be done in a solo by yourself, let's say, but in a large group social setting, I imagine the energy of that experience is much different because the energy of being in a crowd, whether it's a rock concert or singing Christmas carols with your family. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like examples people might relate to, but that experience of being in the now of this is only something that I can experience because I'm involved in it at that moment. Is that a big part of the kirtan experience?
Big part of it. Big part. I think, having an audience and everyone sort of getting aligned and entrained. There's actually a guy named Robert Goss who wrote a really great book, phenomenal, Gass. Oh, it's called Chanting. And he looked at all these different cultures and the way that chanting showed up with them. And he talked about different aspects of kirtan. It's the repetitiveness, it's the entrainment, the way that we're sort of coming together in this tribal way and we're all breathing together and singing together and the rhythm is, and we're all getting entrained. And I think, especially in our incredibly individualistic cultures, there's something that's just kind of ecstatic about that, just to be like a rock concert where everybody's singing together. It's like, wow, here we are. I'm a part of something bigger.
Yeah.
That's an aspect of it, but there's also an uplifting and an energetic aspect of it as well.
As someone who's never done this, right? I've never tasted the cake.
Yeah.
Like, what do people say to you when that's finished? Maybe those who have been skeptical or not interested to participate. What is their experience like?
That's a great question because, I love for a kirtan for people to have an experience and then bring their awareness inside of themselves and look at their head and their heart and their body and their mood. So on the level of mood, many people find that when they chant, somehow their mood becomes one of gratitude, which is quite powerful. So oftentimes we're walking around with frustration. There's something I want and I can't get it. Or resentment. You've been bad to me. I have a secret promise to get even with you. Or resignation. Nothing good can happen here, right?
Yeah.
All these various moods. But gratitude, it's like a lot of times when people get done with kirtan and they feel grateful and they look around, they go, wow, like look at this amazing beautiful space I'm in and these incredible people that made this musical experience. And look at all these beautiful people around me. And I just feel connected with myself and connected with them and connected with something bigger. And, this mood of gratitude is really important. It's like, maybe similar to contentment, like everything is the way it should be.
If someone was to participate or go to a kirtan session, or want to learn more about this, or maybe they've been and they want to take lessons in this process, what sort of like prior musical experience should someone not have to participate?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to be in the audience, zero prior experience is required. And as a matter of fact, my prior experience as a professional saxophonist working with a singer who sang like Aretha Franklin was actually a detriment, because I was sort of like, I wanted everybody to be singing incredibly, beautifully, and so I started out and I had some judgments that I quickly let go of, because I was like, there's actually something beautiful because people are singing from their heart. There's just something really beautiful about that. Now, as far as what I do at Kirtan Leader Institute, I founded the school in 2010. I've worked with thousands of people. And, for anyone to just get started, zero experience required. For anyone to share with others, there's a little training that would be super duper useful, right? Yeah. For anyone to lead a band, what I discovered is the kind of people that showed up for Kirtan that wanted to learn fell into 5 main categories. And they were either singers or musicians or performers or yoga teachers or people who are deep in a particular spiritual lineage. And each of those types shows up with strengths and limitations in a path they would have to follow to transform into an authentic Kirtan leader, because leading Kirtan is a little bit like a decathlon and not a sprint. Okay. There's a lot of skills that you need to have. But anyone that falls in those categories, I could even say a sound healer or a body worker, a lot of therapists use it in a therapeutic way. Those are all really, really great, but they all have their limitations. So me as a musician, for example, I showed up and it's like, hey, I studied with this guy and I played giant steps and recorded and this, that, and the other thing. Okay, whatever. It's like it's actually hard to drop into something that's so unbelievably simple but profound. Yeah. And relief, because I don't have to sit here judging myself that I wasn't good enough and I didn't, play that quite right. Oh my God, I'm 24 and I don't have a record contract. Uh-huh. It's like all these things that we used to beat ourselves up as a musician. Kirtan can be like this incredible remedy because it's simple and profound, and forget about all that.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Would you say that as a result of that, necessarily like traditional musicality, right way, wrong way of singing is less important, and sort of the intention of the experience is the driving goal?
The experience is the driving goal. It's a little bit of a paradox, because Kirtan is simultaneously a spiritual practice, but also simultaneously a musical practice. Mm-hmm. Now, not necessarily if you're just doing it at home. It's just beautiful. And when we have our beginning Kirtan leaders, it's like they get up there and they are like so at the edge of their ability and petrified and supported, and they get through it. And it's like, wow, that was stunningly beautiful, right? But on the other hand, it's like, if you really want to do this at a high level, if you say it's just a spiritual practice and not a musical practice, you might create something that nobody else really wants to do with you. If you think it's just a musical practice and not a spiritual practice, well, I think you've lost the essence of what it is. So we really invite people, if they're going to have a band and share and lead, to think about it as both simultaneously.
If, let's say, someone was to go to Kirtan, how long does something like that last? How long is it? Is it an hour? Like, I don't know. I literally don't know.
Yeah, I guess, it depends on the context, but when we do our Kirtan events, they generally run 2 hours.
Okay.
And there's kind of I mentioned that bell curve earlier. There's probably lots of rock songs that start out spacious and slow, and the energy builds and it turns into this giant peak experience, and then it kind of comes down. And that can happen within a song, within one chant, and it also can happen sort of throughout the evening, and I think there's something very human about that,
Yeah. It's because it happens through time, right? It has a beginning, a middle, and end, regardless. We like stories that build in arcs and have some sort of end, like
Mhm.
climax and resolution.
Mhm.
Is the event one chant that whole time, or is it a series of, I guess I'll call them songs? Like how does that event broken up?
Well, again, it's just like jazz, it's like I keep saying there's so many different ways to approach it and flavors. I think there are some places where people might do a single chant for an hour, and that
Okay.
could be unbelievably profound. I would say generally ours last from 4 to 30 minutes. And I have this one chant that's kind of the pinnacle, and it starts out very spacious and calm and slow, and it builds to a frenzy, and it's like it's a good half hour. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
buckle up because we're
yeah,
going for a ride. And it's very ecstatic. And so kirtan can be ecstatic, kirtan can be meditative,
yeah.
kirtan can be soothing and relaxing. I suppose people could even make kirtan be somewhat jarring if they really wanted to. Just for people to do their own research around this, two of the most popular Western Kirtan artists, so we're talking Western and not Indian classical music influenced, is Krishna Das, Krishnadas, 2 words, and then a gal named Sanatam Kaur, Snatamkaur. But your folks might actually really enjoy this band, who I think was like in the 90s and early 2000s, called Kula Shaker, Kulashaker, and they were a kirtan influenced rock band, stadium rock band from Great Britain.
All right. I got some Googling to do.
Rock and roll power chords and
Yeah.
two guitars, bass, drums.
Does a kirtan, so thinking of like Indian classical music, you have a drone and a tonic, a sa, saz in D, let's say my sitar is in D, right? Is a kirtan, the chant, is it driven by a singular melody, or is it a series of chords like you would have in Western music, and does it have harmony?
Well, it can be both. Now, if you're Indian classical music influenced, you're probably going to be more working with a scale or a rag, or there are these scales called the 10 tots, and some of them correspond to Western music scales, and some of them don't. They're more interesting, like flat 9, flat 13, all this kind of stuff. Personally, I write some chants that are based off of rags, off the 10 tots,
Mm-hmm.
and I write a lot of chants that are based on chords. I can sometimes hybridize them. So I have a way of looking at the tot and building chords out of the triads, and then that creates a universe of chords and what do I want to do. And I've even done things where they're very sort of chordal. Like I got really inspired by this Jocko song.
The bass player Jocko, right?
Based by Jaco Pastorius. They came out, there was some live concert video that was buried for years and came out. And I was listening to it, and it was actually The Chicken, which was written by, I think, Fred Wesley, who was the trombonist with James Brown. But he had this whole soul intro, and the chords were like amazing. And I was like, wow. And I started messing around with all them. And I created the song, and it was some Sanskrit and some English. But I'm just sharing this with you to geek out as a musician, is that it was in C, but somehow I figured out a way to land on the C sharp major 7 chord and then resolve to the C major. And it kind of suspended the whole thing. And it was,
Yeah.
the form is so open. We can do so many things with it.
If our viewer here is interested in finding kirtan classes or events, where should they go?
My website for our Kirtan school is kirtanleader.com, and you spell that KirtanLeader. And my personal website for my band and my music is called Mike Cohen Kirtan, Mike, Cohen, Kirtan. Those are a couple of places. And I would just encourage people to go to Spotify and type in the name of Krishna Das or Sanatam Kaur or Kula Shaker, or if folks want to shoot me an email, mike@mikecohenkirtan.com, I've created these different Spotify playlists with music from the genre. So this gets a little complicated, but Krishna Das is in the Bhakti Sanskrit tradition, and Sanatam Kaur is in the Kundalini Yoga tradition, and the language is slightly different. And then I've got what are called mashups, where you have a mantra plus English words put together. And I have goddess chants, and I have Shiva chants, and all this sort of stuff. And we're in the process this summer of sending out links to these playlists for folks so they have some good summer listening. If people want to email me, Mike at Mike Cohen Kirtan, I'll be happy to send them.
Well,
So they
that's
have
great.
yeah.
That's great. I mean, part of the joy of this series is I get to learn about a lot of stuff that I didn't know about. And I want to encourage other people obviously to explore and learn stuff too. So it's really great that you have that as a resource for people to learn and explore. And this has been fantastic talking to you. So thank you very much.
It's great to do this with you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. All right. I think that is our end for today's video. But if anyone has any questions, obviously, check out Mike's site and you can email him as described. I'll have links below for everything. Thank you very much for watching.
Catch you soon.
Bye.